The 17th of the 2nd, 2026. The time is 25 minutes past 9 to 9. And that means, as always, one thing, that there are a gazillion F1 centric threads at which we will need to pull. John Cammy, too generous as always. Let me speak to you about our agenda in the first instance. Max Verstappen destroying all and sundry, saying I don't need all that fame stuff. What are we doing here? I don't need to be in front of the cameras 24/7 like the other 21 on the grid. Mention no names. Sir Lewis, George, Charles Leclerc. I am here to race. We'll talk about that. So too we'll talk about some crash things. Of course, it was Formula E. So too we'll touch on Bathurst. It's techie because why? Because in motorsport, the weird and wacky world that is, danger always has front row seats, and this is more pertinent now than ever as we talk about the new rules and regs going into 2026. Stella said that starts, I'm concerned that we have ourselves another edition of 1982 Canadian Grand Prix and Riccardo Paletti. That would be unacceptable. Already far too many drivers in the storied 75-year history of Formula One have lost their lives at the altar of risk and danger. So too we'll talk a bit about Lando Norris. There's a gazillion different things. I'll get to some slides. We'll go through all one and all. We'll talk about Richard Hammond and Richard Hammond's daughter, again disrespecting the extent to which these things are dangerous. Let me show you this in the first instance. Speaking of danger, Rob, you're a legend. John, I appreciate you ad infinitum. This is important. Oh, and by the way, lest I forget, 6:45 a.m. GMT tomorrow we go live because there will be cars on track. What do you mean? Day one of the second session over at Bahrain. It's going to get I'm telling you, and we'll talk about upgrades. As if we haven't got enough things. It is Talking Tuesday, and we will go long because F1 modes of discourse has to be a back and forth conversation. Let me show you this in the first instance. Not F1, but motorsport danger settings each and every single time. Let me show you this for context.
RT car, and this is one of the wave-by cars that was up the road ahead of our leaders. Our leaders right now are through the S's, making their way down to the dipper. They're not far away from getting to that car. Here they come.
He's down at the entrance to...
Oh!
Huge shunt. Huge shot for the Craft Bamboo car, straight into it at the top of the BMW.
Safety car boards and flags, safety car boards and flags.
BMW M, Forest Elbow, and that
safety
car is out.
Limiters in 10, 9.
RT car.
Now I'll show you that, if only to say this, you don't play motorsports. Risk and danger always have front row seats. Bathurst, and again, big accident. The chap was ultimately okay. Here is him, Aaron. This was a couple of weekends ago, of course. But this is poor I keep saying poor Aaron. Aaron. Again, he was all good, survived. And that's the all-important piece. However, we go into F1 2026, given the way that these cars are starting, with this sort of stuff front and centre in my mind. And let me show you stupidity and where stupidity could end you up. This is Richard Hammond's dragster. This is the first of two crashes which could have unalived that fella again. Richard Hammond, one of the most goatee-est motoring journalists to have ever goated. One of the legendary trio, the Holy Trinity that was Hammond, May and Clarkson. However, Hammond was always the one who fancied himself as a bit of an evil Knievel, a risk taker. This dragster incident nearly unalived him. This, therefore, is Richard holding a picture of his operation. the outcomes of his operation when they tried to fix him after the dragster. This is Hammond's second incident which very nearly unalived him. Again, had he not been able to extricate himself from this car, an electric car, by the way. Again, things could have worked out ever so slightly different, because so far down the bloody hill did that car roll, the ambulance wouldn't have got to him in time. Get in a car at your own risk, let alone drive one at 100,000 gazillion miles an hour like Formula One are doing now. Here's what Formula E decided they were going to do. Formula E is the hottest topic on the docket, isn't it? Trying to do something. Do you know what I mean? They're the noisy middle brother or sister, aren't they? Formula E desperately inviting Max Verstappen over with a view to try and get some publicity, but ultimately F1 fans aren't going to go over there, not en masse at least, because F1 fans like F1. I was reading a Matt Bishop article today where he's talking about 1991 being peak F1. It was V8s, V10s, V12s. The F1, he says, has a right, no, an obligation, not just to be innovative, but to thrill, to entertain. And some say that Formula E lacks for that it's dead. However, they're trying to do something over there. They're trying to leverage, like Formula One should be, I will have you know. They're trying to leverage content creators with a view to springboard the extent to which they can market to a Formula One demographic. It's not daft. 5 million on YouTube did their Formula Evo session do a session during which they invited some of the biggest, most popular content creators to drive Formula E cars. However, I can hear some of you saying that doesn't sound smart. Content creators that have no racing experience when risk and danger are always front row in motorsport. Surely that's a recipe for disaster. Let me show you this though. This is interesting. One of the content creators has a name, and her name is Izzy Hammond. That's her there on the left, standing next to her father, Richard Hammond, of whom we've just spoken. The dude who crashed and nearly unalived himself in this car and this car. This is Richard Hammond, Izzy Hammond's dad. So you mean to tell me, let me get this straight in my head. You mean to tell me that you're going to let daughter of Richard, who's already Great Escape 2 times, you're going to let the daughter of Richard, who has no driving experience, drive at 1,000 gazillion miles per hour in a Formula E car? Well, let me see. How do you think that's going to work out, chat? How? I'll give you 2 guesses. Roll the clip.
Tyres chirping there. And into the wall. That's a big off for Izzy Hammond as she crashes out in spectacular style down at turn 13. Completely rips the front of the car off, and too much commitment. The rear's gone as well, and that is a big smash into the wall for Izzy Hammond in the Lola.
I'm fine.
You're lucky to be fine, Izzy. Thou shalt never disrespect the racing gods ever again in your life. That's tempting fate. They were hanging around desperately. The Grim Reaper had been looking at your father, tried to take him to the Shadow Realm twice, and very nearly did. And Izzy, you think it's an idea to jump in a car? And yeah, I've got no experience. Of course. Listen, can we take this thing seriously, chat? I say this thing in cheek, and there is a comedic sleight of hand in there, of course. But you don't play motorsports. And again, it's a brand new rule and reg spec. Andrea Stella has told us that these starts could potentially be dangerous. You go and watch 1982 Canadian Grand Prix. Riccardo Paletti unalived himself at the altar of a botched start. It was Peroni, failed to get off the line, but Paletti from 1,000 miles back of the grid, he couldn't see, nor could he get out the way. He was unalived on arrival, dead on impact. What we can't afford to do going into 2026 is fail to learn from the mistakes of Christmas past. You do not play F1. I hope the FI is listening, and I hope they take heed, because we've had a couple near misses here. The Grim Reaper was never far from Richard Hammond, and I feel like Izzy is taking liberties there, getting in a Formula E car with no experience. Listen, I understand what they were trying to do, Formula E, and I respect the endeavour. Do you know what I mean? Desperately trying to leverage some PR and viral marketing, but bloody no, what are we doing? And it wasn't as if Mr. Beast hasn't already tried and failed. One day, he's hoping I'm wrong, but one day somebody's going to do that and get seriously injured. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about some fuel, because it's the same old. You will recall at Barcelona, some say that it got a bit techie as far as the fuel. Remember, going into 2026, that it's all sustainable fuel, that the FIA have that as one of their key strategic objectives. We've got to be clean. We've got to be pioneering in the automotive space. So they say, going into 2026, that it's all sustainable fuels, synthetics and all that gubbin stuff that I don't understand. But these things are hard to make in the first instance, and then they're hard to keep reliable. There's a reason why petroleum is the most oft used source in cars, because it's stable, or at least stabler than these sexy sustainable synthetic fuels. However, as far as the rules and regs, the regulatory hoops that the providers are going to have to jump through, they are techie than techie things. And that's why at the first test, the private door, behind private doors ones in Barcelona, some of the teams, it was said, were not using fuel that ticks the boxes of the 2026 parameters. Here's why that's important. Because some say that there are only a couple of teams who have fuel, or who have at the very least been using fuel that are properly homologated, that tick the rules and regs. Let me show you who we're talking about here. Scuderia Ferrari by dint of Shell, tick. BP, Audi, tick. All of the rest are behind the 8 ball here, the logistical one, because they're not homologated. They don't have fuel that ticks all of the regulatory boxes. This is techie, and the reason why I show you this is because that's Mr. Red Bull Ford himself, Lauren Mekes, the chap who wasn't at the last test, having a cheeky procedure done, and again, glad to see him back. And that's him having a chat with his provider, the mobile guy. Like, they don't have fuel ready to go. What do we do? This rule set is so crazy. You couldn't even write it in a book. They would not believe you. It is far too techie. I just can't. There are no words at this point. Let me show you this as well. This is important because Mercedes have done a couple of things, haven't they? New side pods, new everything. They said that they were going to look around, just like Rob Marshall of McLaren, that they were going to look around and steal. The good designers don't borrow, they steal with impunity. And this is what they're doing over there at Mercedes. Mercedes, says PJ Smile Tex on Twitter, Mercedes doesn't just update the floor, but also the side pod of the W17, which are now less angular in the rear section. The engine cover is now closed without the intermediate vents. Okay, so that bloody the shark skill that the Aston Martin, this is a joke, GO22. All right, you can't write some of this stuff. So go on then. Let me tell you this. Remember when the Aston Martin was launched and it had that gill in the rear? Mercedes had it too, and they've jettisoned that, apparently not sufficiently efficient. However, also worthy of note, them their side pods, bloody nowhere. Can you say RB21? It looks like they've stolen them directly from that Red Bull car of 2025, and they are different from what they had on at the start. I tell you what, this is going to be modular. They're going to change. This is a development, a design philosophy race now, and Mercedes have drawn their line in the stand, ready to steal from all and sundry, not inclusive, of course, of McLaren. Let me show you this as well. It's going to be interesting. I want to I want to see what you think of this. This is Lando Norris celebrating. I feel like this is a good news story. As much as I dislike Lando Norris for his very his cheeky, chappy manner, not a big fan. Overconfident now is he, since he's the incumbent, wearing the number 1 on his car. I think this is a good news story here. Lando Norris paying homage to all and sundry, those who helped him on his journey. Of course, it's his family, it's his sisters, it's his older brother, once upon a time, who wasn't a slow peddler in and of his own right. It's Adam Norris, his dad, who helped fund his career. 80 million is how much he donated, some say, to McLaren when they were on their financial knees. Interesting that. I have a feeling Red Bull will surprise us. Have they not already surprised us, Daniel, with the innovative way with which they charge their battery? Double shifts down, taking first into turn 10 at Bahrain, as versus anybody else. Nos, you're a legend. I appreciate you, mate. And if you're a brand new member, get yourself over to the Discord by dint of the community tab. There will be a link on there. Lando era, have some respect. Oh, the humanity, John, is that where we are? Lone cyclist, you're a legend. I appreciate you. Nos, far too kind. Go on then, let's talk about some Seb Vettel, because there's a couple of different things linking Seb Vettel come out in the F1 news cycle today. In the first instance, it was Seb saying, I still talk to Max on a regular, that he promised me that soon, in the not too distant future, we'll race and win Le Mans. And then Sebastian Vettel was asked to predict the 2026 championship of the Drivers' Variety, to which he responded this way.
Auch eine der drei.
George Russell und Mercedes.
Schau mal an, das kam wie aus der Pistole geschossen. Auch ein.
Okay, so it's German. So listen, my German's not the best. I studied it about 1,000 gazillion years ago, but you can make out quite distinctly the words Mercedes and George Russell. I'm gonna play it again for you.
Eine der drei.
George Russell und Mercedes.
Schau mal an, das kam wie aus der Pistole geschossen. Auch eine.
Oh, the humanity. Sebastian Vettel is picking favourites out here, lest we forget. Per Polymarket, 31% of the time is how much they say George Russell wins the Drivers' Championship. He is now favourite, a big, chunky, material favourite. Why? Well, because he wasn't bad last year. Lest we forget 1.5 tenths in Singapore quali, where he was on the steering wheel, a grand total of 6 times adjusting for brake bias. Alain Prost level settings, 200 level IQ settings from George Russell. He's not a bad ped. I know, retro man. I've got a bit of German in my locker, but it's basic and it's old and unpracticed. Natürlich. So George Russell, current favourite, 31%. Max Verstappen, I want to say, is 24% as of the time of writing, if we're talking about odds, probability of winning the championship. And that is techie. Let me tell you why. F-boy, you're a legend. Again, I dreamt that I was a reserve driver for Red Bull Racing. Oh, the humanity. Do you want to be a reserve driver for Red Bull Racing? That's the question, eh? Or a second driver. Mention no names. Isaac Hajar, Hamster Hansel. Imagine all of these bods are dodging DEATH, anything but a Woody. Go on then, Easy G, to that point. I want to put some respect on Georgie. I'm not a big fan of the person. There's something about George that rubs me at the wrong way. But as a driver, how can you call yourself an F1 fan if you don't give him his due and his credit when he's on the money and had his Weetabix? There aren't too many on the grid that can beat that fella. Lando will have fits trying to wrestle a championship or hold on to one if indeed George Russell has himself God tier machinery in 2026. There will be a problem. A big problem. But let me tell you about Max. Richard Hammond's daughter crashed in it. Yeah, no, we went through it already, Swiss Tony, I promise you. If you rewind back to the start of the video. Jamie, you're an absolute legend. Lonely Cyclist, thank you, mate. Seeing is believing. Russ had his moments, but still a lot to prove. Afghan, you make the point. George will have to... I don't want to say that George is... Have you guys seen the Game of Thrones horse? That's like beautifully painted head and like the shoulders are perfect, but then they get to the back and they just rushed it through, right? The final seasons of Game of Thrones are rushed at best. And I would say of George Russell that he's yet to paint a picture entirely beautifully. Do you know what I mean? He had flashes, like he was consistent last year, but the question is for George Russell distractors, King George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, goes something like this. Can he do it 24 race weekends of 24? Then you're a legend. I still think it'll be Max 4, soon to be 5-time champion. So go on and let's talk about something about George. Meet the Russells or something like that. Russell will also have Toto in his corner helping him deal with the FIA. And I think, to be fair, because isn't George bloody head representative of the driver representative even at the GPDA? He's a politician. He's Prost-like in that sense. Do you remember Prost in '89 when he was currying favour with Balestre, who was the head of the FIA then? I just think there is something very... I know people like to compare Piastri and Isaac Hajar for obvious reasons to Prost, but for me, I think there's something very... like the political aspect of driving. I think there is something very Prost-like about King George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, and for the rest of them that doesn't bode well, all apart from some chap called Maximilian Verstappen. Now this has been doing the rounds and it's gone super viral. We'll watch it and then we'll react to it because I think it embodies who Maximilian Verstappen is and why so many fans love him all around the world to a T. Roll the clip.
Everybody's got a suit that's way too big for them.
Yeah.
The best one.
Why not there, Max? We are actually doing performance. You know, they're all still sleeping there, and we are here working on performance.
I'm not the type of guy that wants to be on that premiere on a red carpet. It's just not, I'm not like that. I don't want to hang around with like famous people that get invited. I don't need to be in front of the cameras all the time. It's just really not me. And that's why I don't want to rock up there and be in a suit and yeah, act important while we all shit on the same toilet.
I mean, he can only be himself. I feel like in 2026, when it's all bloody, it's the postmodern day. It's all like glitz and glam, and let's turn up to this. It's all a bit much for me, and I feel like broadly, even outside of Formula One, people just want to see real, right? Touch grass, feel the rain on your skin. Do you know what I mean? Natasha Bedingfield, that sort of thing. I want to. I find myself recoiling ever more from the lure of AI videos. I'm not interested. I want to see a human, and I want him or her to speak to me. I want to feel like I'm not governed. My life isn't governed by AI. And I think that's what Max Verstappen, not to get too profound, but I think that's what Max Verstappen's speaking to, isn't he? He's unconcerned by the glitz and glam that so accompanies F1 in the Netflix Drive to Survive era. He just wants to bloody race. You know what I mean? I don't want to turn up to all this nonsense. The F1 movie, yeah, great movie. Oscar nominated, some say. But I don't want to go there. I'd rather spend time with my wife and child. What's wrong with that? Or even worse still, I will see you that and raise you this. Max says, what I want to do is get more performance out of myself and my car whilst they're there at the Met Gala or making albums or driving cars in Monaco. While they're doing all this gubbins, I'm going to be at the Nordschleife, do you know what I mean? Or at the Sim in Milton Keynes, extracting performance out of myself. And when you have a dude that's ready to do those things, who will stop at no lengths to get what he wants, which is of course a 5th championship, then Houston, we have a problem, especially when the others aren't willing to go to those lengths. I know you guys are gonna say it's D1 level Max Glaze, but is it Glaze? If it's truth, it sounds so much better in 100% lowly psychic. I need to learn some language. I need to get me some Dutch at some point. The question is though, do you want to poop out the church? I don't want to share a toilet with anyone, to be honest. Apart, even, well, we won't go there. Still haven't seen the movie. Me neither, Nando. And I made an attempt to watch it, and I just thought, this is a bit too. Nah. Cameron should learn. I will get there at some point. I've got ambition of German, and I understand that there are similar parallels, maybe. Yeah, no, I'll get there. Answer is be the first. Max married the paddock merry-go-round. Now he has the nerve to talk, says Eddie. Why we like Max? This is why I'm guessing, without speaking for millions and millions of Max Verstappen fans all around the world, I'm guessing that this is one of the main reasons why they might like Max, because he's the anti-star, isn't he? He's brilliant, but normally brilliance comes with stardom and extracurricular activities hand in hand, right? Like you can't separate the two. But in Max Verstappen's instance, he averts his gaze quite deliberately from the stardom that so accompanies Formula One in the Drive to Survive era, and I think that's endearing. It is different. It's not bad, that F1 movie, says Walter. I'm going to go and watch it at some point. First 45 minutes is really good, actually, and then it gets Hollywood. I will watch it. German is completely different than Dutch. Natürlich. I only know that word from that. I think there are similarities. Well, I've heard somebody said more intelligent than me, Riaz, that there are similarities. And they put natürlich as a word out there, which I recognise from my German studies. I'm presuming it means similar. It isn't Max Glazing, more like meat and potatoes. That is Max Verstappen. Like English is the same as Irish. Do you like, not the same, but similar? Question mark. Do you like Rush Tip 2013 based on the rivalry of Lauda? That's a movie. I tell you what, my favourite one. It's the Christian Bale one. Ford versus Ferrari. I can't even remember what it's bloody called. Christian Bale and Matt Damon. That's a film. What's the Christian Bale, Matt Damon? What the hell is that film called? It's not Ford versus Ferrari. When he talks about the perfect lap and he's talking to his son and that lap's out there and blah, blah, blah. Hang on. Ford. Yeah, there we go. Ford versus Ferrari. Third versus Ferrari. There's a comment in here that I want to respond to quickly. Is around third base. Here you go, Eddie. I mean, you've called me out here, so I'm I'll oblige you, and I will go scorched earth. You read this out, Eddie. Even though you're being very disrespectful and tongue-in-cheek, but I'll leverage it and go scorched earth for 5 minutes. Cameron's still playing the simp. I don't know what simp means, Eddie. This modern day language I don't understand, mate. Do you know what I mean? I guess Red Bull haven't given you paddock access yet. Given paddock access. Eddie, you're brand new to the channel, mate. We've been expecting you. Put your feet up. Why don't you get yourself a beverage? Let me explain to you what we do on this channel. First, in the first instance, I'll never sacrifice truth, objectivity at the altar of any cognitive dissonance worthy of the monarch, not partisanship, not confirmation bias, none of them. That's the first one. Let me get that out the way. And then the second, Eddie, I'm not going to be in the paddock anytime soon. Why? Because I'm looking to build a community over here. So sick and tired all my life am I of being gate kept. Come here, Eddie, you got me all tripping over my words and stuff. Eloquence out the window, left the chat. So tired am I of being gate kept away from Formula One. They love to do this thing that I despise. No, I'm allergic to. They gatekeep in this way. F1 I'm talking about when I say they. They privatise the profits and socialise the losses as if they were Lehman Brothers in 2008. And I'm not here for that. I don't like it. I want to build myself a community that love F1 but are not necessarily of F1, if that makes sense, Eddie. But thank you so much for your question, kind sir. Don't be disrespectful. I know, Pid. I understand, Pid. You don't need to. Don't educate me on the definitions. I get what Eddie was trying to do there. Trying and failed. Okay, so let's do this. Was Lewis robbed in 2021? Eddie, what year is it now, Eddie? You got one question in, mate. I'm not going to indulge you in a second necessarily. With your rudeness, Eddie. No, dude, I can't believe you have 61 subscribers. That's awesome. I appreciate you, Walter. We'll get there, mate. 100k coming soon. When your boy rolls up his sleeves and gets his industry on. He thinks that Cameron hasn't been offered on the grid. Johnny, do you know what I mean? We're building a community out here, mate. And like, if I'm in the paddock, then how can I be streaming? I can confirm you're a legend. Eddie, that's history, man. Cameron is a hammer. Tilioro, that he doesn't know. Forgive him, Lord, for he knows not what he does. Cameron, if you really want something to rage at for sheer stupidity, the F1 community has its own very conspiracy theorists. I know, I've seen it, Mr. Harper. I can't. I've already given that too much sunlight. I just can't. Listen, you can't if you start fighting with stupid from a distance, it's difficult to tell who is who. 75k by Summer Break F Boy, we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah, leave him alone, Easy G. I've indulged him enough already. Wants to come in and take over the agenda. Do you know what I mean? He didn't see me at the outset outline the agenda. You can true side. I'll leave him in there. A bit disrespectful, but I can leverage that. Some people don't like you having a soft spot for the man they call Maximilian Verstappen. Rob, I mean, we can't all be fans of the same person. Do you know what I mean? Let's not. I'm a Max RB fan, but 21 was certainly odd. And I'm sure, why does everything devolve to 2021? And I'm sure I would have hated it if somebody won like that. The subsequent years have proved he's a champion. And I agree with most of that, mate. I won't sit and say nothing for you. Yeah, 100%. So you can't. Don't feed the child. Riaz, I will not. Put some respect on Sir I said, just go. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Must have blocked him a long time ago. You guys are legends. Apologies, I'm gone a bit short because this is Talk It Tuesday. I normally go long. But the problem is, your boy's got to be up in a couple of minutes to stream. Day 4, day 1. It's day 1A, isn't it? Or day 4 of the Bahrain testing. You guys have been legends. I appreciate each and every single one of it. In fact, let's stay a couple more minutes. Eddie's got me going in here. Everyone just be respectful, disagree. I don't know why sports fans can't agree to disagree. Why so difficult? Surely that's the fun, to have an argument but being respectful. Insane. Hey Cameron, haters ride the waves you make. You have to embrace them if you want to make bigger. Wow. That job, bruh. It's part and parcel of YouTube. You are right, Jomo. This is the cost of doing business. But again, if I want to open the door to conversation, to debate and F1 discourse, again, not everybody's going to agree with me. And listen, soon when we get the phone-ins going, it's going to get techie. It will be disagreement. But again, sports debate is that, isn't it? Sick and tired of the internationally syndicated F1 media concurring. Do you know what I mean? Agreeing all the bloody time. When is Sir Cameron full touch, Johnny? Sooner than you might realise. Media who spend all their time at the paddock tend to get caught up in all of the amenities, and it often it affects their journalistic integrity. This community is developing greatly. I appreciate you saying that, AJ. Listen, there's. I'll tell you what, the boys and girls over at the race, they do it. They're gold star. They do it really, really well for the most part. To be fair, they are a bit vanilla for me, but they, as far as knowledge and giving the proper narrative, the rich texture and tapestry commensurate with what Formula One means to us, you and me. I think the boys and girls over there. I've got to put some. I'd love to hate on them. I would love to hate on them, but I can't. They're really, really good. Honestly, it's really refreshing that Cameron isn't all over Sir Lewis and all of the other British drivers, just like most British F1 YouTube channels are. I used to, and you know what? Shall I call out myself? Let me bring myself to the truth. But I've still got a soft spot for Lewis. Like I just feel like I feel disappointed. I feel like he hasn't been the same driver after 2021. Is the honest truth, and as well he might be. You know what I mean? You can forgive him for that, like. I still have a soft spot for Salute. Remember the Japanese Grand Prix 22, in which Sky Sports crew were having a heated argument over the tractor on during the let's not get into Sky Sports. Eddie's already got me going scorched earth, and I haven't got enough bandwidth to go again. Do you think the entire grid will be downshifting like Maxcom Australia? So who spoke to that already? There was a Red Bull bard, Pierre Vacher, who said that out the box, because Max had been in the sim so long, that he was always going to have first mover advantage as far as the downshifts and leveraging, no weaponising that with a view to blip or expedite for the rate at which the battery charges. That was always going to be Max's, but don't think for a second that those, do you know what I mean, that the other bods weren't watching and learning. And Pierre Vacher is like, well, when you see them tomorrow, all of them will be downshifting like crazy with a view to expedite for the rate at which the battery charges. The MG UK, mostly everybody will bring upgrade to my 100%. You've already seen the side pods of Mercedes on the right hand side of the screen. Cam is a Bubby Blando. I've got to put some respect on his name, Lando. How can I not? I don't warm to Lando, is the honest truth. He's never going to be my favourite driver, but is he a fast F1 bod? Of course, I mean, you've seen Zandvoort a couple of years ago. He's rapid when he's had Monaco, first man under 70 seconds, for Pete's sake. Lewis didn't appear to be the same driver because he no longer had Bottas to kick around as a team. Oh, visual. Oh, don't let Mama Cameron hear you saying that, Joe. But I mean, that thesis will, there will be more and more people subscribing to it, lest Lewis Hamilton turn this tide around, right, and start performing like we know he used to perform. Remember who he is, 2018 Sir Lewis, Singapore. If he can be that guy again, then owe the humanity. Car's on track tomorrow, but I need him in Melbourne. I know EasyG's coming soon, mate. What, less than 2 weeks now? Oh, he's gonna get tacky. Cameron never sacrificed truth nor objectivity at the altar of any cognitive dissonance worthy of the moniker. We'll get there in the end. Let's see how strong different gearboxes are. Oh my gosh, you've heard that Aston Martin, eh? You behaved. You're well behaved. No, you are well behaved. Cam doesn't sacrifice. Choir boy Z, you know us. Go on then. Blando's a one-hit wonder. Nando 33. Is Lando a one-hit? A lot will depend on the car, right? If McLaren go and build another gangbuster car like the MCL 39 was in 2.5, then it could get taken. Everyone says Russell is favourite for champion. What if Antonelli or GW, just because of 2007 and the way that Lewis manhandled Fernando Alonso that year? I've F1 history doesn't repeat, but sometimes it does rhyme. And I think Antonelli will improve vastly more. It'll be better, materially so, this year than he was last. And that could be a problem in portions for George Russell. I mean, when you get to Monza, as an example, who's to say that George is going to nail Kimi Antonelli in his home track? I don't know. Don't sacrifice chickies, even though we won't. Didn't expect to see you here, game right. It is going to be streamed on F1 YouTube channel this one. I don't know. Study if I know anything about F1. No, I don't think they'll stream it. Not on it's the way the rights are segmented across like different portions of the world, right? I don't think they can. Sky in the UK, as an example, will have the exclusive rights, and they won't want to see some channel that anybody can access globally included in the UK. Just why would they? Because then people, instead of subscribing to Sky, I don't know. 07, Lewis had 5,000 kilometers advantage. The Lewis Hamilton age today. Lando is not a complete driver like Max, Lewis, and Fernando. You know what? As we round third, I was gonna touch on this tomorrow, but Matt Bishop has penned this article. Do you read? I haven't finished reading it, but it's such a brilliant article. Listen, Matt Bishop writes an article, you just read it. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna try and link it in the description. It is so good. Pant-wettingly brilliant, like genuinely, it's incredible. He's talking about the rules and regs, and he says that 1991 was, for him, peak F1 as far as the rules and the regs. Talking about the diversity of the engine. I'd read you out a couple bits. The diversity was not merely numerical and marquee related, or mark related. It was also philosophical and acoustic. A V12 in 91 did not sound like a V10, and a V10 did not sound like a V8. One could stand at the exit of a corner and identify a car by ear alone. The Honda V12 had a silken soaring wail. The Renault V10 a hard-edged metallic snarl. The Ford V8 a punchy workmanlike bark. It was an oral banquet, and it mattered to us, as indeed it should have done, for F1 has a duty to stir the soul as well as deliver dollars. Oh, the humanity. Why don't you chill out, Matt? There were so many bits, but that final sentence, F1 has a duty to stir the soul as well as to deliver the dollars. Okay, so they're delivering the dollars, 24.5 billion market capitalization, but are they stirring the soul with these dodgy engines? Let me tell you what he says about, this is important as well. He starts talking about Alonso. You know, Alonso, Max and Lewis have all expressed their discontent around these rules and regs and what they might mean going forward. The fact that you can't drive properly as you would historically in an F1 car. I'm going to read out the bits and bobs. It's ridiculous, said F1 engineers. Lewis Hamilton said, I mean, you need a degree to understand these rules. Max Verstappen said, I enjoy driving flat out, but you can't drive these cars like that. Quote, a lot of what you do as a driver in terms of inputs has a massive effect on the energy side of things. And for me, that's just not F1. Max Verstappen continues. So yeah, driving wise, it's not so fun. Not so fun, excuse me. And Alonso opined this way. And again, I'm going to read this out verbatim because Matt Bishop gets on his overly verbose, not overly verbose, on his verbose horse. Here's what Matt Bishop says. Then there was Alonso, frank, analytical, and as sharp as a rapier. Quote, different driving techniques are needed for different cars and different sets of regulations, and these regulations are a little bit more dramatic in that regard. From a driver's point of view, you want to be able to drive at 100%, but some of the driving that you'll have to do in order to optimize the energy around the lap, even in qualifying, is a bit annoying, says Fernando Alonso. And when the three, continues Bishop, when the three most eminent drivers in Formula One, first among equals, you might say, for they have won a combined total of 13 F1 Drivers' Championships line up in rhetorical formation and fire volleys of criticism at a new set of regulation, it is tempting to reach for the panic button, but we must not. Regulation changes in F1 are rarely popular in the first instance. We've outspoken multiple F1 world champions. They are creatures of habit, such titans, and rightly so. They've honed their craft to a razor's edge within a given framework, and when that framework shifts, they feel the tremor more acutely than anybody else. But, continues Matt Bishop, I hate reading bloody verbatim, but when it's Matt Bishop, it's so good. He continues, I've lost count of the times a great F1 driver has sniffed at a new rulebook in February, only to accept its virtues by July, Moe Magnum in hand. It may therefore be that Hamilton, Verstappen and Alonso will soften their views with time, especially if they find themselves delivering podium finishes, and also, to be fair to them, if the new regs produce good racing. Moreover, on the plus side, the 2026 F1 cars are short and lighter than their 25 predecessors, which were much too long and too heavy. I tell you what, we'll talk about that more tomorrow doing the thing. I just think I will link it in the description. How could you not smile when Matt Bishop raises up his pan, as well Peter Windsor? Who else would I put amongst them? There's a couple of John Noble's good as well, to be fair, but not on the same level. Different levels. It's going to get these new rules and regs, dangerous as they sound as far as the start, but I think they're going to be techie. There's going to be a load revealed over the next 48, 72 hours, 3 days worth of testing, each one of which your boy's going to try and go live for. Each and every single minute. We'll have a cheeky break tomorrow at some point, but I'll outline that. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. You guys have been legends, one and all. That's been Talk It Tuesday. As always, John Cammy, far too generous. We go live. We ride again at dawn, of course. Why? Because there are cars out on track. And if not us to cover the F1 news beat, then you. But I digress.